When I think about the importance of something like Shamba Centre at this moment, I think it's in bringing together some different threads that have been in incubation for a long time, and now in a new synthesis can drive something new forward. And those elements of synthesis include setting up legal frameworks for developing countries in order to manage private capital. I think it's another element has been a lot of work on understanding what food security means and understanding its complexity, so that it'll be very important, and I'm sure it's at the heart of Shamba Centre, to understand that food security is about women's empowerment. It's about the quality of food and nutrition. It's about whether people make a living, either working on the land or as farmers, food producers, food processors, also as traders within the developing country context. There are a lot of there's been a lot of work to create global supply chains. There's been very little work on ensuring equity and distribution along that supply chain. And I think a lot of the ambition of Shamba Centre to end hunger will be realized in assuring better distribution of the returns to agriculture from the beginning of the supply chain to the end. So when I think about what's important and what will matter, one is that there are many economic systems that need to interact. There are levels of economic action, and a great deal of the kinds of global initiatives we see and global numbers we see on ending hunger can lose sight of informal economy and levels of economy that operate a little bit off the radar. It's harder to get the data, so they don't get counted, so then they don't come into the calculations that we have. So to be forward-thinking, Shamba Centre will need to keep an eye on that and understand that they're probably looking at part of the reality. Nobody can look at all of the reality. And so remembering what part you're missing is as important as understanding what you're seeing. And I would urge you to do that. You don't need to work with everyone to be effective, but you do need to make sure that you have ways of hearing from some different actors, even if they're not all your client or your partner or your immediate, engaging with you immediately in the centre's work. I think it's really important to keep track of the policy framework within which investment happens. So understanding where there's a need for private capital, leveraging that capital, and looking at projects that will deliver happens also in a bigger context of whether projects succeed or not. Depends a lot on the environment in which they come. And again, not every centre has to do everything, but the policy context, it just is an important part of whether or not a specific initiative or project is going to deliver the results that you hope. I think one of the things that's most exciting for me is thinking about finance in a different way. And I think it'll be critical to be part of the economic revolution in a way that is looking at value differently, understanding cost and benefit differently, and really understanding agriculture and land and water as assets, but then not putting that back into a 20th century economic model on who's going to extract the most value from them. We've destroyed the planet practically on that kind of basis. Instead, it's going to be on who's nurturing it the best. How are we managing ideas like sufficiency rather than efficiency alone? And I really think that if we get serious about protecting biodiversity, thinking about really reducing emissions in agriculture globally and limiting the increase in emissions even in the global south, we will be building towards something that is shifting our economic framework in terms of what we value and what matters. It cannot only have a monetary value in a market that is controlled by quarterly profit statements of different multinational companies. We just need a much bigger basis on which to judge success. I think Food Security World brings that, and I think Shamba Centre could be part of bringing what we've learned in a big, broad food system approach to food security into the private capital world, and how we change those horizons, start thinking much longer term, and bring more people to the table to benefit from what we can do together.